Welcome back, everyone. Well, it's time for our next panel discussion. In fact, if we take a look at the way the timeline flew, and especially with the last 18 months, one thing is that the last 18 months actually questioned our basic survival instincts. But most importantly, from merely surviving, it also allowed us to unlock our true potential in order to thrive well. So let's try to gather some insights from managing unexpected change to unlocking businesses' true potential with intelligent logistics. That's going to be the theme on Survive and Thrive, wherein we'll have our thought leaders joining in order to share their nuggets of insights with all of you. Once again, I'm going to urge all our members of the audience, please keep posting your questions, and our moderator and our speakers will be more than happy to address them for you all. In fact, our session moderator, the one who's leading the conversation here, is Mr. Parvesh Ghai, Chief Revenue Officer, Asia Pacific with PandoCorp. And joining him, we've got our amazing set of panelists joining in. We have Mr. Ramkesh, Jangra, Head Supply-SCC with Ericsson India Global, Mr. Sukanta Das, President and Chief Logistics Officer, Hindalco Industries Limited, Mr. Ranabir Chatterjee, Vice President, Deliver, South Asia, the Linde Group, Mr. Venkat Madhav, Executive Vice President, Supply Chain, Amara Group of Companies, Mr. Jaydeep Adhikari, Lead Procurement and Contracting Head SCM with Reliance Infocomm Limited, and Mr. Asad Hasnain, General Manager, Supply Chain and Logistics, Airbox Group. So on that note, to all our attendees, stay tuned for another very, very engaging discussion coming your way. And I'm going to hand over the proceedings to our session moderator, Mr. Parvesh Ghai. With that, Parvesh, over to you.
Thank you, Kavya, and good afternoon, everyone. And let me start by giving a warm welcome to all the panelists for this session. Let me give a little bit of a brief context in the background. I think we all know that COVID pandemic has created tremendous stress for companies across industries, with demand side volatility on one side and supply side challenges, that companies have faced on another side over the last 12 or 18 months or so. But what we have started seeing is that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that in last few months, demand has started bouncing back and businesses have started preparing for the new normal. New normal will not have any resemblance, in my view, to the past that we used to live in earlier. And in this dynamically changing world, what is actually needed is a digital reset for all the businesses surely is required. What we have seen is that leading companies are leveraging intelligent supply chain execution platforms as an opportunity to transform not only the customer experience, but also build sustainable businesses for future by reducing the carbon footprint. As demand rebounds this festival season, ensuring products reaches the consumers, I think, remains one of the key priorities for all the businesses. And intelligent supply chains can play a very, very strong and crucial role in ensuring this. At a time when cost control is critical across businesses, I think a reimagination of logistics and transformation of supply chains can deliver the resilience and efficiency that businesses need for this new normal. And we have seen that we have got an esteemed panel of speakers, with experience from diverse industries in the background. And let's talk to them to be able to understand how these businesses are gearing up for digital reset and thriving in the post-pandemic world. And they're trying to build the sustainable supply chains. So let me start by trying to learn and understand, from our panelists. We have seen that India's GDP in June quarter grew 20%, albeit, on a very, very low base compared to last year. And all the macro indicators are looking very, very strong. So let me try to go to Jaydeep to start with and learn and understand how are you seeing the current macroeconomic environment and the consumer demand with the onset of the festival season.
Okay, I'll share some of my experiences from the Reliance Group perspective point of view from multiple industries. And as all of us are aware that pandemic has played the role of catalyst in accelerating the digitization. So what we see is an unprecedented demand, and I'll share one of the most recent experience of one of our BU called AGO. So AGO had planned for a sale for the multiple products which are available on the platform, predominantly into the fashion and the lifestyle categories. And there were certain expectations based on certain past trends. And to all our expectation and to some of the biggest surprise, our technology platform was scalable up to a particular threshold. and we assumed that we'll be reaching the threshold. To our biggest surprise, we crossed the threshold in the first half an hour of the sale going live. So that is the very indicator of the fact that there is a latent demand which is lying and which is creating an unprecedented change in the technology-driven businesses, be it logistics, be it platforms, be it capabilities, be it capacities, where all digitization has to happen. It has to happen at an unprecedented rate. And I've shared one such example. I've got many. I won't be taking much of the time. We'll be going multiple round of panelists taking multiple views. Since I am first to kick off, I have certain advantage of sharing some thoughts, which many of my colleagues would feel that I have still some of their thought processes and ideas. But one thing which is very sure and certain, which I wanted to explain to everyone, is that Logistics 4.0, which was something which was about to happen, which was to happen at its own pace, and which was something which was a buzzword talking about, is no more being a buzzword. It's something we are already into it, and it's something which is happening. We are very much into Logistics 4.0, where smart logistics solutions predominantly, not necessarily on the move only. When I say on the move, it is the tracking of the transaction or tracking of the shipment. It's much, much beyond. The entire gamut of logistics has expanded. And one more thing which I would love to emphasize is that the B2C technology, which all of us have experienced in some or other way by dealing with Swiggy's of the world or dealing with various other companies, the expectations are that the B2C technologies are very much to be replicated in the B2B scenario, and the life has to become altogether different. There are some of the other use cases which I'll take from another BU of ours, which is Geo Infocomm. There is a company called Bounce, which is based out of Bangalore, which is into the bike rental. Now, Bounce had tied up with us, providing them the real-time insight of IoT solution for the bike which are to be made available. And just by simply making change of IoT enabling bike, their offtake rate grew all the way from X percentage to 1.28 times the X percentage. So that is what I'm trying to say, that the demand, Bangalore was one of the worst affected when it comes to some of the metros, and out there demand for bike for logistics has moved up, and we were able to track this with the help of IoT solution we have provided to them. So coming back to the answer which Paresh, you said, is that the macroeconomics is on an unprecedented surge. All of us are bound to be to the biggest surprise, and surprise would be on the positive side. I positively want to be sound bullish because it is all about being bullish. And the fact is that, we are out for big surprises. Macroeconomics is going to surprise everyone by all means.
Thanks, Jaydeep. I think it's good to hear a very, very optimistic as well as a bullish sentiment from a business which represents and works very, very closely with the consumers. Let me move to Sukanta. Sukanta, Hindalco actually moving away from a consumer business to a large B2B business represents a fairly cross-industry mix of demand indicators. How do you, as an organization, both in a domestic and a global context, see the current environment as well as the consumer demand?
Okay, so let me try and answer this in two parts. First, let me try and give you a perspective on how the macros are happening for our kind of non-ferrous metal industry. So, the macros for us, which is predominantly LME prices for aluminium, has been steadily rising almost for the last 3 to 4 quarters. On the other hand, our own operational metrics has been exceptionally well, actually, even during the COVID times, which has helped the bottom line. So, but now the input costs, which are critical raw materials, which is coal or the CP cokes of the world, they are rapidly rising. But thankfully, the LME has risen at a faster rate than these raw material costs. So that's what is helping us currently. In terms of, I would say, the consumption, I mean, demand, I think aluminum consumption in our country has been picking up drastically. It was, in fact, the highest in the last 3 years for the last quarter, which means the underlying demand is pretty strong for the non-ferrous metals. In terms of geographies, even the last year, the domestic demand went down. So most our sales would be between 70 to 30% when I say international to domestic. So as things stand now, we are back to normal, I would say. So now we are doing almost 50% domestic. So all these things are only telling us that things are improving and things are improving on the right direction, as Jaydeep had mentioned.
Which is great to hear. Thanks, Sukanta. Let me move to Asad from Airbox, right? With, I think, the aviation capacity almost hitting a pre-COVID levels. Asad, how are you seeing the overall the consumer sentiment and demand, in the business that you represent? Asad,
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, Asad.
So I'll basically talk about Airworks. So Airworks is basically a B2B. So we are into B2B business. So yes, when the COVID period came, so it was very unprecedented, I would say. We never knew, what will happen, what we'll do, how the business will grow. So we were more in the discussion was more towards business continuity. Fortunately, the portfolio, so we manage multiple portfolio. So this business, the diversification, that really helped us out, because we are also on the commercial side of the business, commercial airlines, plus we are also on the business jets, as well as we are supporting the defense also. So typically in our industry, even if the aircraft is grounded, you have to maintain that aircraft. So yes, the business, I would say, was not as it was pre-COVID because of the commercial airlines getting stopped. The line maintenance activity was to a large extent on a halt. But during that time, the government really supported us. They played a very important role, both the central government as well as the state government. And the aircraft maintenance engineers, they were treated as they were treated on the essential services. So they were allowed to go to the airports, allowed to visit the hangars and do the maintenance activity. So having said that, we to a large extent, I would say, we mitigated the business risk. But even today also, if you ask me, all our hangars are completely choco-block, so they are completely full. But liquidity still remains a challenge, and that will take some more time so that recovery will take some more time. And we were also we are analyzing the plane load factor as of now. So the plane load factor from, I would say, 0, it has now come to extent of 70 to 75%, which is a good sign, which is really a good sign. So I'm pretty hopeful, and after talking to even the business experts in aviation industry, we are quite hopeful that the business will rebound, and we will very soon in the sense in next 6 to 12 months horizon, we will come back to the normal level.
Got it. Thanks, Asad. Quite interesting insights there. Venkat, let me move to you. Amara is a very, very, important brand and a company playing a big role in the automotive industry's value chain. And we have seen that automotive industry over the last couple of years have seen quite a bit of impact with regulatory disruptions as well as EV-led disruptions coming into play. But I think pandemic has at least brought in a very big impact on the personal mobility. And I think it will be good to hear your views. How is that creating a different kind of demand, in the industry that we would have never experienced before? So it will be good to hear your views, Venkat. Venkat, you're on mute.
Thanks, Parvesh. You might have, many of you have heard our recent announcement on new energy and mobility space. We are in, the products are getting ready. But having said that, the EV transformation is going to take some time, particularly in Indian context, because because of the two factors. One is because of the cost of a battery, and in terms of the cost of investment in the manufacturing, because you have already have the Panasonics of the world, the Samsungs and the LGs of the world, who is having huge capacities. In spite of you been hearing the India needs so much of gigawatt hour requirements, but it's still in a very nascent stage. We've been talking quite loud and with a lot of fame schemes coming up. But the one thing is, unless the India is going to transform in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of, I'm talking more in terms of a battery space, but even in spite of the vehicles that's coming in, there is more of a pull and push happening from each of the governments to introduce the EV vehicles and things like that. It's important for us to set up the, the energy, rapid charging facilities across the country, which is going to help for a continuity of travel by the user of the vehicles. So given that there is a huge lifetime, I can say another for 2 more decades for the lead, being so beautiful non-ferrous lead that is used for lead acid batteries, which is almost used 85% in the battery for a battery manufacturing as a lead as a non-ferrous metal, and it's having 99% recycling capability. And having said that, the material that is used for EV, in terms of the battery space, like lithium, your cobalt, manganese, these are all not available. And it's going to take time in terms of getting from a very, very critical locations or availability of mines from Chile, Bolivia, and the rest of the places. So in our context, in our strat plan, yes, there is going to be transformation that's going to be available very soon, but it's going to take time in terms of the total shift.
Got it. Thanks, Venkat. Very interesting perspective. So as an organization, you don't see over next 3 to 5 years, EVs still becoming the mainstream. It will still take longer time for EVs to start garnering a larger market share. Is that the right view you have?
You're right. You're right.
Okay, very interesting perspective. Got it. Move to you. I think Linde as an organization was in a very, very different kind of environment, as well as a very different kind of pressure, right? As one of the largest medical oxygen suppliers in the country, your supply chain actually was under tremendous pressure, not from the demand perspective, but more from the ability to be able to supply perspective. Would you just give us a perspective saying that as you shifted your capacities from industrial to medical oxygen, what were the challenges that you went through? What learnings that you had, and how did you cope up with those high stress kind of environment, which not only had the impact from the business revenue continuity standpoint, but also on the lives of the people, that you were impacting, and you could create an impact on a day-to-day basis. It'll be good to hear the view and the learnings and the whole exercise that you went through as an organization over the last 12 months or so, especially when the first or the second waves were at the peak.
Thank you, Parvesh. I think I'll take some time to do that. If you allow me. So coming back to the industrial, I'll just touch upon that, on the business sentiments and the customer demand. See, the medical business is like of our total oxygen volume in a normal steady state, we are around 20% of our total volume. We are primarily into a B2B environment, dependent heavily on steel, automobile, pharmaceutical, etc. But I see tremendous possibilities in steel. Steel is doing excellent for last. You can look at the steel price, and we are really struggling to meet up with the demand in the steel. So steel is doing fantastic, and at the same time, automobile was doing good, because one of our product is key for automobile, which is called argon. So automobile manufacturing, that is also doing excellent. Coming back to the pandemic, first wave, second wave. So, it's a simple story of surplus and deficit. So you have some geographies where we have surplus oxygen. In some geographies, we have deficit oxygen. So how do you move? And so just to, I could see a session where I thought I'll elaborate it in details. So in a very pre-COVID situation, we were doing around 400 tons per day of medical oxygen. And on the first wave, we were doing around 1,200 tons, and then we moved to 3,500 tons per day. So that was the jump. And this all happened within 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. So, and this is cryogenic liquid. You just cannot move it. You need to have specialized vehicles to do it, specialized containers to do it. That was a big struggle. I think we did a lot of innovation. Maybe I will talk about it appropriately in the session. But yes, we managed, and I think with total nation's oxygen requirement was around 8,000 tons, and we were doing around 3,500 tons. So we were.
So Ranabir, it will be good to hear. We all know that as an organization, you went through a really unprecedented times, right? With the kind of demand versus the capacity and the ability to be able to move that capacity closer to where it is needed. Do you want to bring, what are the 2 or 3 things that you struggle with on the challenges? More than that, what are the few things that you are doing to get ready for similar kind of situation again in future from supply chain perspective?
Okay, let me talk about what we did.
Sure.
So again, as I was talking about, it is from surplus to deficit. How do I move? For example, maximum of oxygen is available in East, and the requirement is in North. The transit time, and this all cryogenic movement till the second wave were all done by road. So we have our own cryogenic tankers which used to move. The transit time, turnaround time is 7 to 8 days. So I mean, we really struggled with these containers moving, with these trucks moving from one part of the country to other, and we really struggled during the first wave. Then during the second wave, what we did, that we said, yes, this is not possible. We will not be able to meet the demand. Then we started looking for ISO containers. We went out to the world and hired ISO containers, and within a very, very short span of time. And getting ISO containers is fine, but again, from one geography to other, the transit time, the vehicle arrangement, all those stuff was very difficult. So then we approached the Indian Railways. I said, can Indian Railways help us in moving these ISO containers to one part of the country to other, where I can reduce the transit time. And that was the first time in the Indian history we moved cryogenic liquids in rail. And rail was also very new. It was very new for them. They said, no, we have safety standards, we have safety requirements, we can't. And lot of persuasion. We said, now finally, thanks to the Indian Railway, and government has supported us tremendously. So, and that's an innovation. I mean, when I look back now, I don't know how many lives we saved with this. So we imported ISO containers. We requested, how do you import ISO containers? Aircrafts were not operating. We approached Indian Air Force. Indian Air Force said, okay, we will get you those ISO containers from Singapore, China, etc. Even from Germany. So that's one part of it. So what we did, we got all those ISO containers, we filled those, and then we moved within 24 hours with the transit time, which was around 7 days earlier by road, that came down to 24 hours. So, entire thing changed for us. Another thing on the back end, what we did is, this kind of, okay. Another, I would definitely mention and thank Indian Air Force. So what we approached Indian Air Force, see, the transit time was 7 days. If I can reduce half of it, so then it becomes 3 days, right? So we approach Indian Air Force. There are issues carrying full tankers by air. So we requested Indian Air Force, can you lift our tankers from those destinations to the source plant? And they said yes. They engaged Globemaster, C-17 and all those aircraft. And that lifted the empty tankers back to the source. So that's one excellent thing. I think innovation, it was life and death, and you need to. So then we approached railway, can we do a RoRo service? Roll on, roll off. There were technical issues with the roll-on, roll-off. So in some geographies, we did roll-on, roll-off. So I mean, that's one. I mean, we are really, when you look back, you see, I mean, the tremendous support, and we did 3,500 tons. So another thing which was internally what we did. So we have a very robust scheduling and a planning tool. So we do on some prediction, entire our production, entire our planning process works on that, because it's in a B2B environment, reasonably, I will say, a disciplined environment. So our prediction also works. But in this situation, everything failed. Everything failed. None of our prediction worked. I mean, in the morning, the consumption is X, and in the evening, consumption goes 10 times. So, you know, no prediction work. And there is no...
Understand.
Yeah,
I understand. So, it's very difficult to be able to get, gear up for a unpredictable environment around the demand side, like that, right? I will, on behalf of, I think, all the audience as well as panelists, at least call out a vote of thanks, to the impact I think Linde could to save the lives of so many people. So while I know as an organization would have been struggling, but you made a huge impact overall, by trying to work round the clock, leverage various mechanisms to be able to help the country to save lives. So it was really, really appreciated, Ranabir. Ramkesh, let me move to you. You are a global technology company, and with the demand from your customers like telcos, which has shot up in a big way as the whole world was operating from home. How did you try to strike that balance of the supply side disruptions or the supply chain disruptions? What are the key challenges that you have to deal with, and what are the key learnings that you had to get ready for the future, as well as cope up for the significant increase in demand that some of your customers are seeing from the telco segment side?
Yes, Parvesh, COVID has derailed entire world's life, and post, or I say during COVID, another problem, geopolitics started, which give a big disruption to world trade and global supply setup. This itself was a learning and challenge that there is imbalance in supply of products. Only one center of the products is there in the world, and that need to say balanced out, and companies and governments with the geopolitics and all these things are working out to develop more supply locations for the globe. And telecom being essential service, because for any natural disaster or any calamity, we need good network first. Even for disaster management, the team need better communications, and the to fulfill this requirement itself is a big challenge, because as you said, the demand goes suddenly very high, like oxygen or like any essential services. Everything start becoming virtual. The first priority of the government or the leaders was to save the life. To save the life, we people were not allowed to move from one location even to hospitals. Then what will be the solution? Then the solution come out, let we start telemedicine or virtual medicine. And for that, hospitals were not equipped, and the demand came. The telecom companies geared up, they motivate their employees to come in office and to the locations, and to give a better network to the hospitals and the people who are living in different uh, geographies. Better network provided to the hospitals and the people at large in a very short span of time. And the challenge was, first is lockdown itself. There was arrangement of various passes to move the material, vehicle, manpower, and then to opening of premises, pickup locations and delivery locations, and then security of the staff itself and the material itself. Vaccination was not there. People need to safeguard themselves, and or alternative medicines or alternative arrangement to be safe from the COVID. Thus trainings or virtual trainings were organized, and there were rotation of the people. Then we engage local people at maximum level so as they can work locally and reach to their home safely. And engage maximum local people.
Interesting.
Still, there was a bigger challenge was the high cost of international logistics, be it by air and by sea. Then, of course, for certain geographies in the world, alternate like rail transport or road transport were opted out mainly in Europe, and from China to Europe, the rail network were also used very massively. So these are the few challenges and the requirement how telecom industry meet to the society need.
Sure. Thanks, Ramkesh. I think interesting insights that technology came to the core to help for you as a technology company to be able to make a big
Yes,
impact. So interesting insights.
right.
Sandeep, let me move over to you. Would you want to briefly talk about what were the supply chain disruptions and the impact you saw on the business? And how did you deal with it? And what are the key learnings that you had of last 1.5 years of pandemic-driven environment in the business? Sandeep? Okay, not sure if Sandeep can hear us actually. Maybe I'll come back to you, Sandeep. Let me move. Venkat, let me come to you. If you look at, as you rightly said, automotive industry has seen a huge set of developments happening around, right? Which is, you know, while you are saying that EVs are still going to be at the nascent stage, before they become the mainstream, possibly down the line, regulatory changes, impact because of the chip shortage on the supply side, demand side impact. While you as an organization get ready to be able to address the demand as well as the growth in future, I think it will be interesting to learn and understand during these challenging times, how do you foster the culture of innovation to continuously innovate and leverage technology in the way you get ready for the future so that you are able to leverage technology to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Parvesh. As we know, Amara is more part of the innovation is a part of one of our core values. We have 5 core values, and innovation is one of our core value. Today, in any corporate governance, the enterprise risk management, innovation is one of the aspect. So you have no choice. You need to be agile and augment and adapt to the needs of the change in the the dynamics in the technology space. It's good that the last more than two decades there is no technology shift happens in the battery space. It's good that the EV is going to call for a change in the battery in terms of more life, in terms of more storage capacities. It's going to happen, but sure, the chip shortage is going to will be a issue down the line, and to our prediction, the chip shortage is going to continue till 2022 beyond. So given these challenges, it's important that the Indian government should look upon made in India under the chip manufacturing within the country, and de-risk your dependency on countries like China and others on the chip shortages. Hence, it's very, very difficult for us to see the roadmap, how things are going to happen. Still, many companies have a lot of shortages, and that is having a serious impact on the down the line demand planning and forecast in terms of a lot of dynamic shift is happening in the country currently. And we have been hearing a lot of automotive, they're underutilizing their capacities. Thankfully for us, the demand, we don't see much of a dynamic shift in the demand because the aftermarket is scaling up because people started not using the vehicles for a long time and started using, so they have a lot of issues. So the demand is surging for us. So we don't see much of issues at this point in time.
You called out innovation as one of the key strategic pillars for the organization, Venkat. Do you want to call out one or two key things? What makes Amara thrive on innovation as an organization? What are the one or two things that you may want to share with the viewers, which you believe stand out in fostering that culture of innovation from the organization standpoint?
It's very typical and it's a very exclusive, Parvesh, because when we came out with the 5-color uniform, right, with 5 elements linking, right, where we don't want innovation to pierce on our family, on our team of 20,000 employees. We would like to bring that as a culture. We had a very tough time how to inculcate this. We created a lot of kiosks to develop the innovation, thought process, all that. Then, a very vibrant idea has come from our chairman, Mr. Jay Gala, where why can't we have 5-color uniform, where we don't have, each uniform will be linked to 1 or 2 core values and Panchabhutas like fire, air, water, other things. So one of the element is innovation, where we have 5-color uniform and each employee can come out with as to his wish. And, we track how many people are coming with innovation and other things. And when they come out, and they will always come out with an idea, like 5 core values comes with innovation, responsibility, experiences, entrepreneurship, and one more core value. So given all this that is inculcated today, that by the end of the day I need to do something and add value to what I have done from yesterday to today. So that has also created a lot of things, and the people always try to see that what is that I have done better than yesterday. So beyond the top level technology shifts, there is a lot of I see that zeal and cohesiveness because of very average manpower of employees of 35 years age. So you see that zeal of always thinking very positive approach across the environment of our manufacturing facilities.
Got it. Thanks, Venkat, for sharing. Surely very, very useful and valuable insights here. Sukanta, let me move to you. Hindalco being a cross-industry, B2B and a global organization, and typically in your kind of business, a digitalized supply chain can help optimize the overall network through better visibility as well as cost optimization. How do you prioritize technology investments in supply chain over another transformation strategic objectives that the organization will have?
Well, see, I mean, as Adhikari was mentioning, to begin with, we managed the entire supply chain virtually almost during the lockdown. That's what we did. And that's the experience which we carry on from here on. It's only going to be how we exploit digitization and automation to further enable efficiencies within the supply chains. So I think in terms of digitization, that is one of the key aspects which Hindalco has been looking at. And as we speak, I mean, we have been having visibility across the value chain for a fairly long period of time. As we speak, we have about 100% of our visibility in terms of. Sorry.
Maybe I'll request other panelists just to put it on mute.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Sukanta.
Yeah. So I have 100% visibility on my movements across the road or the railway networks. We have GPS-derived systems. We have analytics, which we work on at the back end 24/7. We adopt blockchain. So now we have further trying to strengthen stuff in moving ahead in terms of having a blockchain in place with shipping lines to ensure that the entire documentation piece gets digitized and automated. So I think we are not only internal looking, it's also external looking, how you make your entire supply chain visible internally and externally, so that efficiency is passed on to the last mile as well. So I guess, yes, it is going to be the year of digitization and automation for, in fact, the years to come in terms to avoid such a kind of hassles which we have been facing throughout the lockdown and this pandemic.
Sure. Thanks, Sukanta. Very interesting insights in terms of, creating a digitalized value chain with your suppliers, with your carriers, and bring the real-time visibility of the supply chain execution brings in a huge impact in the way you run your supply chains on a day-to-day basis to be able to deliver a predictable kind of business, to your customers. Right? Very, very interesting stuff. So let me try to move on to
Parvesh,
closing.
Yes, Parvesh, before you move on, sorry to interrupt. If you see the backdrop of, you can see my logo here, backdrop of the screen. It represents the 5 core values. One of the core color is innovation, and our uniforms also goes with these colors every day.
Got it. Understood. No, Venkat, I think it is very, as I said, that it is very, very useful to get the valuable insights, because innovation is not responsibility of the leadership, but it's the responsibility of the organization as a whole to be able to build an environment, culture, so that every individual across various teams can participate and create that environment, for the organization to really bring in a big shift in the way it moves forward and gets ready for the future comprehensively in various aspects, right? I think, Venkat, one quick question. I think some of the industries, like, for example, since you spoke about EV shift is still around, sometimes away, and some of the companies like yours always gets questioned. Let me become a little contentious. They're saying that, that there is a big impact on the environment with the kind of product portfolio you have, right? And how do you build, and there is a need at a global level to build businesses for a sustainable future for the world, right? So I think it will be good to get your views in terms of how is your organization preparing for what we call it as the ESG compliance, or building the sustainable products, processes, and supply chains in particular, where technology could play a role to become much more greener or future-ready, sustainable business. It'll be good to get some of the views from your side.
Sure, Parvesh, very interesting question, very relevant to our industry. Yes, today if you talk about ESG, right, earlier we've been doing a lot of CSR and other things which like any other companies. Today, environment is definitely a big issue, and we have the state-of-art facilities across our plant locations in Andhra Pradesh, and today the state of equipments that we bought is of any benchmark to any of the world standards. That shows our not only our product performance in the way we manufacture our products, and we take care of the people who've been working along with us for more than 2 decades. So given that, in spite of you have ISO 14001 certificates or OSHA, right, we do take care of the people in terms of their lead in blood, right? We meet the OSHA requirements on 20 gram micro per DL. We test people, we shift people who are in the critical areas on a random basis, and the governance is of very transparent, and we take care of utmost important in terms of our neighboring villages that surround our facilities, and the environment is of our topmost priority. Not only now, it's part of our vision all across our the businesses that we are in today.
Sure, got it, Venkat. Let me just then try to move on to the closing aspect, which is, given the kind of disruption we have seen over the last 18 months or so, and given that there is a need to be able to run sustainable businesses for future, let's understand how your respective organizations are trying to define the strategic priorities for future, and what role an intelligent technology-led supply chain can play in addressing some of these priorities. Maybe let me quickly go through, each one of the panelists to be able to get their views very quickly in, say, 45 seconds or so. Maybe let me start with Jaydeep. Jaydeep, do you want to give us a quick perspective?
Yeah, see, we are ourselves into the technology business. When I say ourselves, is Geo is one business which is into technology, and then we have legacy business, which is the petchem manufacturing and the oil and gas business. So what we are doing is that we have realized the importance of digitization of the entire manufacturing processes, and digital twin is the most happening buzzword across our manufacturing processes, where we are digitizing the entire manufacturing process wherever possible to bring in some of the latest technology to improve the efficiency. So I would say embracing industrial version 4.0 and digital twin are the most happening thing for our manufacturing side. And when it comes to the digital business of ours, embracing the next generation technology, which is 5G, and within 5G, bringing in 5G-I, which is India-specific standards, which are going to be specific to our country and not necessarily sticking to the global standards which are defined by 3GPP. So these are the two areas which I would strongly suggest as way forward, taking my 45 seconds. I have a lot more to add on in between as well when Ranabir was saying, so I'll just take 20 more seconds. When it came to pandemic, we were one of the point of time 10% contributor of daily requirement of oxygen, and that's where we, along with Linde technology, modified the manufacturing of industrial grade oxygen all the way to the medical grade oxygen, and that's where we were catering to more than 1.12 ton on a daily basis. So innovation is being forced upon, and that's the time we as a company, we as a country, all of us deliver to the next level. That's what I can say.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jaydeep. And I'm sure it was not Linde alone. There were many organizations, right, in the oxygen space as well as in the whole supply chain space, which came together to be able to create the kind of impact a country like India needed during a really, really peak situation of second wave. But I think it's good to hear those insights about being a technology company. You are leading the pack by adopting some of the newer technologies like Industry 4.0, digital twins, etc., to get ahead of the curve, to be able to really, really create a big impact in the way you run your supply chains, right? Ramkesh, quick call outs, 2 or 3 strategic priorities, and within those, what role intelligent supply chains or technology could play in addressing those? Will be good to hear your views.
Ericsson is a technology enabling service provider company, and it is enabling all new initiative or drive to make the business digitalized via IoT and so many others technological startup. And for all those things, Ericsson is offering 5G technology and now implementing more than 100 networks across the globe, and is ready to provide in India also. I'm sure with these technological inputs, and all industry will get benefits and make their business more affordable and digitalized and perfection.
All right. Thank you so much, Ramkesh. Good to hear that view. Ranabir, again, views from your side in terms of, are you getting ready for future? What are the 2 or 3 things which you want to call out, and what role supply chain could play or intelligent supply chains could play to avoid the kind of extreme situations? I don't know whether we can really avoid, but at least get ready for those kind of extreme peak situations that you encountered, during last couple of waves.
Yeah, you rightly said, Parvesh. I mean, avoid, I don't know. It's about just to prepare ourselves. So we are continuously investing on digitization, especially on the supply chain space. Where automation is pretty good, but still we are continuously investing on that. That's one area what we are doing. And secondly, on technology for clean environment, that one is for the clean environment and one for the efficiency. We are continuously investing on technology and obviously safety, which is our of utmost priority. I think these are, in simple words, what we are looking ahead and building up our asset capabilities to cater to such unprecedented demands.
Sure. Thanks, Ranabir. Asad, views from your side, same thing, 2 or 3 strategic priorities, as well as the roles, supply chains can play in addressing those.
Yeah, Parvesh, as far as Airbox is concerned, our first priority continues to be digitization. And I'll briefly explain you, like in our industry, the tools plays a very important role, the specialized tools and the general tools, which we are having more than 5,000 such tools. So we have recently developed the intelligent asset tracking and management system. It is on IoT-based platform, and where we have integrated that with the RFID, passive RFID-based solutions, and also with the biometric solutions. So we, at any given point of time, because we have got 27 different locations, at any given point of time, we'll know that particular asset is being used by which person. So we know the identity of the asset, identity of the person, and we have also integrated the enterprise solutions so that all the process flows are automated. So so we will continue with the same zeal on digitization. And our second priority would be, like we are currently working with the top OEMs like Boeing and other OEMs on defense platform. We are working with HAL, and this is in line with the government vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we are working very, I would say, aggressively on that with the OEMs and HAL. So these 2 are our top strategic priorities as far as Airbox is concerned.
Got it, Asad. Thank you so much for sharing, and sounds pretty interesting as well. So views from your side?
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on 4 things. Digitization I already spoke about, and everybody talking about the things already there. That will be our core focus. Second one, which I'll touch upon, is process redesigning. I think that's a lot of redesigning which we'll have to do in terms of this changing world. So I think we need to make it more nimble, agile, and flexible. So whatever needs to be done on those fronts are being worked upon. I think mitigation planning is something which is will be used even in day-to-day execution as well. So plan B is now always there in even for a day-to-day execution level as well. And the third one is how we can bring ourselves closer to our partners, both physically and intellectually, is something which we'll have to work on. So I think those are 4 or 5 areas which we should look at.
Got it. Closer to the partners, both physically as well as, otherwise. I think it's an interesting call out. Venkat, let me go to you, the last one. Can you just give us a perspective? I will also possibly ask an audience question from you, but it'll be good to hear your views in terms of strategic priorities and what role the intelligent supply chains can play in addressing from the business impact standpoint.
See, what happens is that there is a very interesting transformation we took within the group of Amara companies from digital transformation. As we know, technology shift. We are not really, like many other companies, the human optimization and productive enhancement is one aspect that we would like to link and work towards that. So the digital transformation linking to HOPE, we call it human optimization, productive enhancement, has been now a clear roadmap that we have. To given that, what we have done is, to start with, we have stabilized SAP HANA S4 across our, group of companies. The next level that we have done is vendor portal. How are we going to interlink beyond, the interface of our businesses? Then the third one we started doing is the CRM, the customer relation management, is one thing that we have done it. Now having the gamut of all your stakeholders now the transformation has been initiated in terms of how are we going to cope up in terms of more in terms of digital team, and on the logistics aspect, we have been very clear in terms of every vehicle is being GPS enabled, where the customer will have the access to look upon it. And also at the regional levels, we have been incorporated with the digital twins, where there is a free flow of accessibility and the reach of the product. Because, across the pan India, we have almost like 2,800 destinations that we need to support from only 2 plants that were from one state, which is definitely is going to be very critical aspect, very dynamic. And hence we've been so successful with our digital transformation. But there is an internal target that we have taken by 2023 start. All our supply chain of all the group companies will be digitized.
Very interesting insights, Venkat. Thank you so much for sharing. So there is a question which has come in from the participants, which is again a very obvious question, right? And maybe I'll give the platform Venkat else who wants to just address this, saying that any insights about this current demand supply gap on the semiconductor, the chip shortage size, how long will it continue? How is it getting addressed in short term? Any insights? I think that's what one of our participants wants to hear the view.
Yeah, if anyone wants a frank opinion, no efforts have been made so far within the country. Still, our dependency is high on the rest of the countries. To my personal perspective, it's going to continue till 2023.
Okay, interesting. Thanks. Sure, got it. Thanks, Venkat. Because we are still dependent very strongly for a globalized supply chain and very little effort. And you can't do it in a very short span of time. It requires huge cycles to be able to put together the chip capacities, and apart from the capital, it requires quite a bit of time. So let me wrap up this whole conversation. Firstly, thank you so much to all the panelists for sharing their views, experience. I think what I've gathered is that there is quite a bit of bullishness as far as the demand side of things is concerned across industries, whether these are consumer-facing businesses or some of the B2B businesses, which rely heavily on various industrial kind of businesses for them to get the demand coming their way. So there is quite a bit of bullishness. I will not even use the word optimism, that whether it's a pent-up demand or the kind of consumption that some of the businesses which are represented here have already started seeing in last few months, which gives quite a bit of hope that at least the macroeconomic environment as well as the business sentiment around consumer demand continues to be very robust. And we also heard quite a bit of views from everyone saying that unless organizations put investments and put the thrust on digital technologies, businesses will continue to struggle to be able to make progress in a way. The whole supply chains have to be made intelligent as well as create impact, giving visibility or optimize cost or create impact on environment for sustainable future for the businesses. And I think that's one of the key themes which has come out, saying that investment in the digital for the new reset or the new normal is going to be one of the key aspects which can help organizations to take a leapfrog compared to their other companies in the industry. Thank you so much for all the panelists for sharing their views. It was very interesting to have this conversation. Thank you so much for your time as well as sharing your views with us. With that, I wrap this up and hand it over back to you, Kavya.
Thank you very much, Parvesh. I believe that turned out to be such a dynamic discussion with some